Hello and welcome to Las Vegas to the 6th edition of the Infrastructure Summit by Structure Research. Joining me now on the sidelines of the event is Tito Costa, Chief Revenue Officer at Tecto Data Centers. And Tito, pleasure speaking to you. Congratulations on the new role, because I think it's not even a month yet. You're just like a week or two into
15 days. Yeah.
15 days, there you go. We got you into the role, so congratulations.
Thank you.
We will go into Tecto in a second. But first, let's start with the conference itself. So this year's theme of the conference is concurrence. Concurrence meaning 2+ events happening at the same time. And in this industry, this is the concurrency age. We have AI booms, we have demand, supply constraints, we have energy, we have policy, regulation, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's so much things happening in the market right now.
Yes.
From your point of view globally, so not just in a Latin perspective, from your point of view, what trends do you think are going to be the ones that are really going to shape growth and development of data centers in the next 12, 16 months?
I think that chipsets will play a huge role. Of course, NVIDIA dominated the market since the inception of this AI thing. But AMD is picking up, Grok AI has their own stuff. Of course, Google is doing TPUs for a while now. So I feel like that is something that is evolving and nobody actually knows where this will end. So keen to understand what will happen in the next year or so on how those different chipsets or softwares that control all of those things will integrate together in different types of workloads. So that's one of the things that I feel like is super important. Of course, number 2 is inference. I mean, depending on the workload, what piece of inference, because that's another thing that people usually misunderstand, is that, well, all the inference workload will happen in the edge. That's not true. A part of it is batch inference that can actually be something that is being repurposed from the data centers, the current AI factories where you have training going on. So part of that batch inference, so to speak, will run in those big AI clusters, and then you are left with what is inference really means in terms of latency and etc. So what is that threshold? I mean, how much of that workload will happen in the edge and how much of that will happen in the core? It's also something that is open to discussion, and I feel like that's definitely something that will happen in the coming years. And lastly, but not least important, regulation. We all know that Europe has a very strict regulatory environment in terms of AI workloads. The US is a little bit more open to it. Brazil is coming now, and we will talk a little bit about that with a sort of a mixed version of Europe and the US. So also that's definitely something that I feel like will evolve during this year and will drive the growth and demand for that kind of thing.
And the fascinating thing is that this is going to drive a lot of the geographical choices as well of players in the market. Speaking of which, so focusing on the Latin America region, I mean, concurrency is also happening down there because there's so much stuff happening. Again, from the regulation perspective, so in Brazil alone, you have the ReDAtA legislation being passed, which brings, I think, lower taxes at least to equipment. The whole region is doing things. We've seen the OpenAI announcement in Argentina, $25 billion. If it's going to happen or not, that's a different question. But we can talk about that as well. But there's a momentum growing. That's the main message. Is that there's momentum. There's conversations. Things are happening. It's not like 8-9 years ago when Latin America said, "Oh yeah, one day it will happen." That day is now. It is happening. So what's your temperature check in the region? Like, let's start with the challenges, then we can talk about the opportunities. But what are the challenges? What's happening to get this concurrency going in Latin America?
I would say the main challenge there is geopolitical as well. I mean, the influence of US and China, they are somewhat fighting to deploy those workloads and dominate those countries, if you may say those kind of things. It's definitely something that we'll have to look upon and see what will happen eventually in the future. Talking about the countries themselves competing for those workloads, I don't envision a future where you'll have multiple AI factories in multiple countries in Latin America. Chances are you have one in Mexico, perhaps something in Colombia, Brazil, of course. It's the largest data center footprint in Latin America. But then that's pretty much it. I mean, you will be fighting against all those countries and understanding what is the barriers that you have to enter in those countries. So Uruguay did very well when they landed a deal with Google a couple of years ago. Argentina now trying to announce something with OpenAI as well, which is very interesting. Brazil, of course, a ton of things is happening, mainly because of the ReDAtA issue that you brought to our attention. Our import taxes are coming down from 60, 70%, down as low as 5%, if depending on the rebates that you can get. So yeah, I feel like the continent is now being looked upon by all those players, due to also some restrictions on their infrastructures as well. There are generation problems, there are transmission problems, there are those kind of things.
Which are common to other regions as well. It's not just...
right? So those things, and this is a funny aspect of it. We are not building AI factories in Brazil, let's say, to compete against other AI factory also in Brazil or other data center operator from Uruguay or Argentina. We are competing globally. For a data center, OpenAI might deploy a data center in Brazil or in India. For the sake of it. So it's all about that lack of latency being a problem that makes the market so competitive and so hard to get those deals landing over there. And lastly, I would say the main barrier would be the aspects of regulatory issues and legal issues or ease of doing business in those countries. Latin America was always behind or lagging when you compare that with the US or Europe. People that usually deploy in Brazil had a tendency to look into the country and say, well, I don't know if my deployment will be there for that long because of regulatory aspects that might change, the law might change, or a new interpretation might come, and all of a sudden I'm uncovered over there. So I feel like those are the main barriers that we are seeing down there, but they are evolving, and I can see that customers now are looking into the continent with a different set of eyes. That, I mean, we are too big to fail. You know, it's not like
the demand is there.
Yeah, you're not deployed there, and all of a sudden you'll have to pull out $1 billion of investment. That's not the case.
Yeah, and the vacancy rates. Actually, I should have checked this before coming on camera, but the vacancy rates are not very high in Latin America either. So supply is definitely not keeping up with demand.
No, it isn't. I mean, in terms of capacity being built right now, I would say that we are around 700-ish megawatts of capacity online in South America. Plans to build new AI cities all over the place, coming up to 2-3 gigawatts of capacity. But if you compare that with the US, that's nothing.
No, but the US is at the top of the list.
Yeah, or even Europe, if you may. Yeah. So there is a lot of demand over there, but there is just a handful of players in the market. So very, very good moment to be in this industry in the region. A lot of projects going on, and happy to be there and supporting those initiatives down there.
So, of course, one of the big topics here has been neoclouds. How are neoclouds coming and seeding Latin America? What's happening on the neocloud front down in Latin America?
Not much, actually. Not yet. So, I mean, they will come eventually, but I would say that the first movers will have to be the hyperscalers. Chances are that they will do the first couple of deployments, and then there will be a follow-on from the neoclouds.
Okay, and you've already mentioned legislation, regulation. I mean, the ReDAtA is very interesting because it kind of builds up, and you said that the legislation is a bit US and a bit European in terms of inspiration. ReDAtA kind of reminds us of what happened in Ireland when they brought down the taxes for equipment importations, which then really got the data center industry to completely explode in Ireland, to the point that they can actually build no more because there's no energy. But there's this, Brazil would never have that problem in terms of energy.
Well, but I can't say never, but
Well, at least in the foreseeable future. But when it comes to regulation, of course, that's a good step forward. That's a good step in the right direction. What else is missing? What else does, in this case, just Brazil, what else does Brazil need to do from a policy regulation to really attract more internationals? And internationals, not just the Americans, attract the Europeans, attract the Asians, attract other big players in the world into the region.
So a lot of the efforts that the government is currently doing are steering things in the right way. I would say that the country is going in the right direction. It's just a question of, I would say that envelop the message a little bit better to give that ease and that calm from especially from the US players, who are the majority of the players in this industry, make them more keen to move forward with the country. There is a lot of interest. I'm not here in the US just because of the conference.
Because you wanted to come to Vegas.
I'm here visiting customers. There is a lot of offers out there. It's just a question of that last and final step. That is a tweak that needs to be done between governments more so than anything that the industry might be able to do or should be doing. So I feel like we are almost there. I would say with somewhat confidence that by next year we'll have some AI deployments announced in Brazil.
Yeah. So it's more of a marketing issue than a policy issue.
The policies are there. I mean, the ReDAtA project, as you mentioned, reduced the taxes, which was a huge burden for Brazil. Brazil was way behind everybody in the continent. Now we are down there like everybody else. On the top of that, Brazil is 90% of the matrix comes from renewable sources. We are the only country that does that in the Americas. We have plenty of power, as you mentioned, at least 9 gigawatts of excess capacity.
Which many other countries cannot say the same thing.
Right. So there is a very good environment to do those kind of things. But again, this fine-tuning between governments is something that we are still missing. But I feel like we are getting there. There is a lot of work being done on the background on political officials talking to each other, different countries talking to each other and coming in agreements to make sure that those kind of things happen.
Yeah, that's good news. I mean, we saw it firsthand because we did our first event in São Paulo this year as well.
Yes.
And talking to the government was easier than we thought it would be. And we could tell that the different ministries were talking to each other. The different ministers, we spoke to 4 different ministers, and they all knew what the other minister was doing. There was no secrets. There was no.
Absolutely.
There's collaboration.
And we as an industry came together for the past couple of years and also helped develop those kind of relationship. Because if you think about legislators, they have to legislate against everything, not only data centers. They have to know about right. And it is hard for them to clearly understand what our industry needs. So part of that education was done by ourselves as an industry. The Brazilian Association of Data Center has a huge role there as well. So we all came together, make sure that happened, pushed for the ReDAtA. It was listened. The government did what they need to do. Again, there is just this final stretch that I feel like is happening as well, and eventually you'll get those deployments.
But whilst we still need to build Brazil a little bit, the messaging around Brazil, one thing that I have noticed, and especially going down there, is that there's some Brazilian strategies, ideas already being exported out of the country to other continents. So some Brazilian companies are already looking at Europe. Some people in Southeast Asia are looking at projects in Brazil and see how they can transport the idea into Southeast Asia. What's happening on that front? Because it seems like the industry is still building itself, but it's already being exported. So the best practice is already being exported, which usually you have to prove yourself. In this case, it seems like we've skipped the stage at that point. So how is Brazil becoming an international industry without even having built?
Well, I would say that, listen, Brazil has one of the largest airplane manufacturers in the world, right? So Embraer is very important for the industry. They fight with Airbus and Boeing, and they are chasing big contracts. So that comes from Brazil as well. Brazil is not a small country. People tend to look to us and say, well, you're just 250 million people in a third world country. I mean, it's a huge country. Whenever people look at the globe and see Brazil as a small country over there, they forgot to put that in perspective because the globe is not
shrunk in the southern hemisphere.
It's shrunk in the southern hemisphere. I mean, we are the size of Europe. If you put Brazil on top of Europe. So it's a big country. There is a lot of people over there, and there is a lot of this mix of people thinking differently about what the industry might do. We have software companies in Brazil that are doing very well and exporting a lot. Multiple unicorns are coming from Brazil as well. Of course, Latin America, Colombia has a lot of them, Mexico has a lot of them, but Brazil has a couple ones as well. So we are doing fairly well, I would say, exporting some of those ideas worldwide.
And the talent quality as well. Because there's a lot of countries that sometimes we look in the world and we think those countries are the solution to a lot of the software problems. And then you end up having bigger bills to pay to fix those problems. Whilst a country like Brazil, for example, does develop software developers, engineers, the talent quality.
We export a lot of those.
The talent quality is high in there.
It is.
And we see it a lot in Europe, especially being Portuguese. In Portugal, we see that a lot.
Same thing.
Talking about Tecto now, so you just joined 15 days ago, so I don't even know how much you can talk about it. But talk us through, I mean, how do you feel? How does it feel to jump on a new venture? Because Tecto is only about a year old as well, so it's still, I was going to say it's a baby. It's not a baby because it's building $1 billion of infrastructure. It's not starting from zero. It's like starting from a good footfall. But how does it feel to get behind a new project? And what does the project look like right now? Give us a quick update on the portfolio.
I came to join Tecto after a almost 8 month period of being out. I had
everyone deserves a rest.
No, I mean, yes, but in my case, I had a cancer, so I had to figure that out. I had to overcome that. So coming now to a new project is, awesome. It is a huge company, although it's baby, as you might say. We already have 40-ish megawatts operational across the continent now, because we don't operate only in Brazil, we operate in Colombia as well, with a couple of data centers there. So super stoked with the fact that we have a $1 billion plan to invest in the short term. A couple of projects there will be announced by PTC. We will probably be announced a couple of those deployments. But more, besides the fact that we will be addressing the enterprise segment as well, this is something that Tecto didn't do before, and I joined the company with that objective as well. We are also aiming towards the hyperscalers, so we have a huge campus coming. We are breaking ground as we speak in São Paulo with a 200 megawatt data center over there. Multiple land banks on top of that to accommodate any type of higher rate deployments or gigawatt deployments as we are seeing coming into the country. So super stoked with the new objectives, and happy to be joined and to be chosen to develop this company.
Yeah, well, especially in an exciting market like Brazil, like we just discussed in the last few minutes. But so you do have some ribbon cutting ceremonies coming up with new projects being opened.
Yes, we do.
I believe in Fortaleza. Yes. Talk us through those. What size are they going to be in phase one, and then if they're going to get developed into a bigger size in the next few months, years, and then we can talk about new locations.
So Fortaleza is the second largest submarine cable landing point in the world. So there are multiple submarine cable systems arriving in Fortaleza. And Fortaleza ended up building a huge ecosystem of interconnectivity. Because of its proximity between Europe, Africa, and the US, a lot of those cables ended up landing there. And with those cables comes content, comes hyperscalers, and that traffic needing to be exchanged locally. So we end up doubling down on our investment over there. So even though Tecto is a company that is only 1 year old, some of those assets that are sitting there in Fortaleza comes from the days of GlobeNet, which was the submarine cable company that was acquired by BTG a couple of years ago. And that those assets will be transferred into Tecto, so Tecto will be the data center operator in Fortaleza. So we are launching what we call Mega Lobster. Now it's Fortaleza 3, that's our third data center there. It's a 20 megawatt facility. We are starting with 4 megawatts on the first phase. A lot of interest from the customers. We already have offers out there, even though we are not launched it yet, but the data center is already commissioned, so customers could be able to deploy ASAP. So this will be announced officially on the 23rd, but we are giving you the news over here in the first hand.
Looking into new locations, and this is the parts that you can just say, oh, I'm only 2 weeks into the job, I can't talk about that, but looking into future locations, of course, you mentioned São Paulo, we've got Fortaleza, those exist. You mentioned Colombia. Where else are you going to go? So within Brazil and outside of Brazil, I mean, even beyond Latin America, is there like the dream of going beyond Latin America? Or is it too early to even talk about that? But
I would say that there is too much on our plate in Latin America already to envision something outside, unless it's something opportunistic that happened. Myself, as a Brazilian, would love to be in a Brazilian company and deploy a data center in the US. It will be a first thing ever in the industry, because usually the US companies are buying us in Brazil, right? But I would say that there is a lot to be done in Latin America yet, and our focus will be there for at least the next 2-3 years. There is a ton of expansion plans over there. Of course, Porto Alegre is already announced. Vital, who is our sister company and owns the submarine cable systems, have a submarine cable arriving in Porto Alegre down south. So we are already preparing ourselves and building a facility there in Porto Alegre. So that's probably one of them. Belém, Recife, those are 2 other locations that we are just recently acquired plots of land or are in negotiations to buy opportunities in those sites. And then, of course, the major cities of Brazil. We are always looking into those. Brasilia, Salvador, Belo Horizonte, all those things are within our radar. It's just a question of when you make the move. As of now, again, the most early ones, I would say, would be Porto Alegre, Recife, and Belém. But then coming out of Brazil, of course, we are always looking into the other countries. We need to look into Argentina, we need to look to Chile. We are already deployed in Colombia. We have 1 data center there. but that's in Barranquilla, so there are other options over there. You could move to Bogota, we could move to Medellin. That's also in our radar.
Okay. What will be your priority for 2026 as the new CRO, as the business grows, as you build the board, as you build the portfolio? What's going to be the number one priority?
We definitely need to work on our product offers. This is something that, for the first time in my life, I am in data center operator that is part of a group that not only comprise data centers per se. I'm sure we'll be in this the standard data center products of being there, selling colocation, cross connects, interconnection, managed services. But there is also in this group submarine cable systems. There is also in this group energy companies, generators, transmission lines, and etc. So we can bundle that offer and offer a way of our customers to enter the country that nobody else can do in the continent. So that's one of the main goals for this first year. Of course, I need to build the team because I just joined the company and I don't
Nobody can do this alone.
Right? So we will be launching a series of job openings in the short term to make sure that we have a team to put that offer together and put all those things in motion. And then, of course, the expansions. As I mentioned to you, a couple of those expansions will go live next year. So we need to make sure that we are driving that growth and making sure that we are opening those data centers.
Well, sounds very exciting. I'm going to let you go to enjoy the rest of the conference. But Tito Costa, the new Chief Revenue Officer of Tact Data Centers, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure,
appreciate you joining, and I'll see you in Hawaii.
Yes.
As for our home, thank you for watching, and do check our website and social media for the latest digital infrastructure news from across the globe. At the Tech Capital you lead, we report. Bye for now.